At the family dinner, our parents suddenly announced, "All the money, $500,000, goes to our beloved Emily. She deserves it." And to me they said, "And you, Kate, you'll figure things out on your own." But then Grandpa stood up and said, "Now it's my turn to speak." No one expected what happened next. But before we go on, leave a comment telling us what country you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Kate was used to being in the shadows. The shadow of Emily, her younger sister, the shining star, as their parents always called her. A shadow in her own home, where her accomplishments went unnoticed and her needs were an afterthought. From an early age, she learned to rely on herself, not expecting support or understanding. It wasn't a conscious decision, more of a survival instinct in a family where love and attention were never equally shared. Memories floated back like frames from an old film. There she was, little Kate, proudly showing her parents the drawing that had won first place in a school competition. The distracted response, "Good job, sweetie," followed immediately by shifting all attention to Emily, who was practicing her dance routine for an upcoming recital. Then there she was in high school, getting top marks for a complex physics project. The parents praised her, only to quickly add, "Just as long as this doesn't distract Emily from preparing for drama school. Emily's our little star." That phrase echoed in the house more often than good morning. Kate never blamed her sister. Emily was beautiful, charismatic, and had a way of charming everyone. She really was a star. And Kate, to be honest, admired her. But deep inside, a bitter sense of insignificance took root. Kate understood early on that she could only count on herself. Right after high school, she enrolled in a part-time university program and got a job. She studied during the day, worked at night. Her parents never offered help, and she never asked. She rented a small apartment on the edge of the city and started building her own life, far away from a home that had always felt cramped and unwelcoming. Her parents were proud of Kate's independence, but in a strange way. They praised her for not burdening them with problems, for not needing attention or money. Emily, on the other hand, was completely dependent on them financially. She took expensive acting classes, wore designer clothes, and regularly traveled abroad for vacations. And the parents spared no expense, believing they were investing in her future. Kate knew her parents were proud of how dazzling Emily looked. Her glamorous style, flawless makeup, and trendy outfits gave the image of a successful, confident young woman. Kate, in contrast, preferred modest, practical clothes, minimal makeup, and simple jewelry. She believed what's on the inside mattered more than the outside. But looking at the admiring glances her parents gave Emily, it was clear, in their world, appearances outweighed substance. Kate barely spoke to her family. She called on holidays, sent birthday greetings, and occasionally visited. But those visits were always stiff and formal. She felt like a stranger in a house that revolved entirely around Emily. And now, her father's 60th birthday. A milestone. Kate got the invitation over the phone. Her mom said curtly, "Come. It's only proper. Your father will be glad." Kate wasn't expecting anything from the evening. She knew there would be lots of guests, toasts to her father, and of course, to Emily. She spent a long time picking her outfit. She wanted to look respectable, but not flashy. She settled on a simple dark blue dress, elegant but understated. She did light makeup and pulled her hair into a neat bun. Simple and graceful. When she stepped into her parents' apartment, the noise hit her like a wave. Guests, dressed to the nines, were chatting and laughing, handing over gifts. Emily, in a dazzling evening gown, stood in the spotlight, soaking up compliments and flashing charming smiles. Her father glanced at Kate and gave a small nod. "Oh, it's you. Come in, make yourself comfortable." No hug. No kind words. Just a flat acknowledgement. Kate felt the familiar sting of being an outsider. She gave a polite smile and walked to the living room, trying to blend in. She handed her father the gift she'd picked out in advance, a high-end leather briefcase. "Thanks," he said, setting it aside without a glance. "I'll look at it later." Kate sat at the table, doing her best not to meet the eyes of Emily or her parents. She watched the party as if from a distance, saw her father boast about Emily's achievements, her mother's proud gaze, and Emily basking in admiration. Kate felt invisible, a shadow swallowed by the brightness of a family celebration. She picked at her food without tasting it, tuning in and out of conversations, trying not to feel. But she felt something, or rather, the absence of it. A hollow emptiness she knew all too well. She thought she had made peace with her role in this family. The role of a background character, an invisible one, someone neither seen nor valued. But deep down, a small hope still flickered that one day, someone would truly see her, appreciate her, love her. Just because. The evening dragged on. Kate couldn't wait to go home, to her small but cozy apartment, where she could just be herself, without faking smiles or pretending everything was fine. At the dinner table, decorated with flowers and overflowing with appetizers, Kate's father cleared his throat, calling for silence. Emily, seated beside him, playfully tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, clearly expecting another moment of glory. Kate, on the other hand, felt a knot of anxiety growing in her chest. Something deep inside warned her that this was the moment, the one that would finally draw the line in their family story. When her father stood up to make a toast, Kate felt a brief wave of relief. He'd probably say a few polite words, thank the guests, and she could quietly slip away. "Dear friends, family," he began. His voice carried through the room. "Today I turn 60. 60 years of a life filled with joy, and yes, hardships too. But my greatest achievement is my daughters." Emily beamed with pride. Kate, reflexively, winced. She already knew where this was going. She always knew. "As you all know," her father continued, sweeping his gaze across the room, "their mother and I have always tried to give our girls the very best, to ensure they have a bright future." He paused, glancing meaningfully at Emily. "And we've made a decision, one I hope you all will understand and support." Kate felt her insides go cold. She lowered her eyes to her hands resting on the tablecloth. Suddenly she wondered, what color was the fabric? White? Ivory? Did it even matter? "We've decided," her father said, raising his voice with a ceremonial tone, "that all our savings, the full $500,000, will go to Emily." Silence fell across the room. Someone coughed awkwardly. Someone gasped. Kate didn't look up. She just waited. Waited for the inevitable. "Emily is our star," her mother added, pride dripping from every word. "She's so talented, so full of promise. She needs this money to grow, to shine. And you, Kate," she turned to her daughter with a cold, flat gaze, "you're strong. You've always managed on your own. You'll be just fine." Her mother's words landed like a sentence. Kate felt a lump rise in her throat. All her childhood hopes, her secret dreams of being seen and loved, gone. Crushed. She'd always known she was just a shadow in this family, a backdrop to Emily's spotlight. But to hear it spoken out loud, in front of everyone, it was unbearable. Around the table, the guests exchanged looks, unsure what to say. Some glanced at Kate with sympathy, others at Emily with envy. But no one spoke. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. A single tear slid down Kate's cheek. She quickly wiped it away with the back of her hand, trying not to draw attention. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into thin air. But she sat frozen in place, unable to move. Suddenly, the sharp scrape of a chair broke the silence. Every head turned toward Grandpa Walter. He had always been quiet and unassuming, sitting at the far end of the table, distant and withdrawn. He seemed like someone who merely observed family affairs, never interfered. But now, there was fire in his eyes, the fire of righteous anger. Grandpa Walter rose to his feet, leaning on his cane. And in the heavy silence, his voice rang out, strong and steady, like an old oak that had stood through many storms. All eyes were on him. the shocked parents, the smug Emily, and, of course, Kate, staring at her grandfather with a mixture of disbelief and hope. Despite his age, he stood tall and dignified. His silver hair was combed neatly back, and the deep lines in his face spoke of quiet strength. He looked slowly around the room, then let his gaze settle on Kate. In his eyes, she saw understanding, support. Then, without a word, he pulled a thick paper envelope from the inside pocket of his blazer and placed it on the table in front of her father. "Now it's my turn to speak," Grandpa Walter said. His voice, usually soft and calm, was firm and resolute. The room fell completely silent. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Kate looked at her grandfather, hope and fear swirling inside her. She didn't know what he was going to do, but she felt it. Something big was coming. Something that could change everything. Emily frowned, clearly irritated that the spotlight had shifted away from her. The parents exchanged confused glances. No one understood what was happening. Grandpa Walter stood there, eyes locked on his son, Kate's father, with a look of deep disappointment and contempt. It was as if he were saying without words, "You betrayed your daughter. You betrayed your family." Kate felt a wave of gratitude rising in her chest. He was the only one who saw her, who felt her pain, who stood up for her. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of hurt or humiliation. They were tears of gratitude, of hope. Grandpa Walter turned to her slowly and gave her a small smile. In that smile, she saw love and strength. It was as if he were saying, "Don't be afraid, Kate. You're not alone. I've got your back." Kate gave him a shy smile in return. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. A quiet strength stirred, a strength that would carry her forward. A strength that would finally let her become who she was meant to be. Her father tried to break the silence, but Grandpa Walter raised a hand to stop him. "Let me finish," he said, his voice steely. "I've kept quiet for a long time," he began, looking around the room. "Too long. I've watched the way you've raised your children. How you divided them into favorites and those who were just there." There was bitterness in his voice, but he stood tall, composed. "Kate," he turned to her, "you were always there. Quiet, unseen, but always ready to help. You called me every week, asked about my health, brought me medicine. You were the only one who cared about me, not my money." Emily winced like she'd just bitten into something sour. Their mother shot Kate a hateful glare. Her father sat frozen, unable to say a word. "This envelope," Grandpa Walter said, holding it up so everyone could see, "contains my will. A will I wrote months ago, after watching how you live your lives." He placed the envelope squarely in front of Kate. "Kate," he said again, looking straight at her, "this house, the land, and all my savings, they're yours. You earned it. With your kindness, your patience, and your love." Emily shot to her feet, her face twisted in rage. "Grandpa, you can't do this. It's not fair. I need that money. Dad promised me." Grandpa Walter didn't even glance at her. "You need money, Emily? And what have you done to deserve it? Show off your new dresses? Brag about your admirers? Your only concern is having fun and looking good. You live off your parents, never thinking about the future, never helping anyone. You are nothing more than a reflection of their shallow dreams," he added, turning a sharp gaze toward Kate's father. "You didn't raise a daughter, you raised your own distorted reflection in a cracked mirror." Their mother opened her mouth to interrupt, but Grandpa Walter silenced her with a wave of his hand. "Quiet, Susan. You've always indulged Emily, encouraged her selfishness and disregard for Kate. You kept saying Kate is strong, that she'll manage on her own. Yes, she's strong. But that doesn't mean she doesn't need love or support. You stole her childhood. You deprived her of a mother's affection. And now you're shocked she's grown distant?" The silence was absolute. It felt like even the air had stopped moving. Kate sat frozen, gripping the edge of the table. Tears welled in her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Grandpa Walter's words were like balm on an open wound. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, valued, loved. Her father finally snapped out of his daze. "You don't understand. We meant well. We thought." "You thought about yourselves," Grandpa interrupted. "You cared how others saw you. You wanted Emily to shine so the world would envy your perfect daughter. And Kate? Kate just lived. She worked. She helped me, never asking for anything in return. She's real. Not some doll to put on display." Then Grandpa Walter turned to Kate. "Come, sweetheart. There's nothing left for us here." He took her arm, and together they walked toward the door. No one moved to stop them. As they stepped out of the apartment, Kate felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She took a deep breath of the evening air and looked up at her grandfather with gratitude. "Grandpa," she whispered, "thank you for everything." Grandpa Walter gave her a warm, gentle smile. "You don't need to thank me, Kate. You deserve the very best. You're my granddaughter. And I'm proud of you." That very night, they moved into his apartment. It was small, cozy, filled with warmth and quiet love. There was no expensive furniture or trendy decor like at her parents' place, but it had something Kate had been missing all her life, the feeling of home. The first few days passed in a whirlwind of unpacking and settling in. Kate arranged their things, cooked meals, helped take care of her grandfather. They talked a lot about life, the past, and what was ahead. Kate learned so much about him, his youth, his dreams. A bond grew between them, something deep and real. Two kindred souls who had found each other in this big, cold world. One evening, as they sat drinking tea at the kitchen table, Kate asked, "Grandpa, why didn't you say anything sooner? Why didn't you tell them all this before?" Grandpa Walter sighed. "I kept hoping they'd see it themselves. That they'd realize what they were doing wrong. That they'd see how special you are. But they were too blind. Too blinded by their own ambitions. And I knew, if I didn't step in, they'd break you." Kate reached out and took his hand. "Everything's going to be okay now, Grandpa. We have each other. We'll take care of one another." Grandpa Walter nodded. "I know, Kate. I know. You're my guardian angel." In the days that followed, Kate started noticing changes in herself. She felt more confident, more open, happier. She stopped fearing what others thought and finally began living life on her own terms. Her parents and Emily tried reaching out a few times, calls, messages, but Kate didn't respond. She didn't want to see them, didn't want to hear their excuses or their guilt trips. She knew they'd try to get the money back, try to pressure and manipulate her. But she was ready. She wasn't the shy, uncertain girl she used to be. She was strong now. Independent. Sure of herself. One morning, she got a call from Grandpa Walter's lawyer. "Kate," he said, "your parents and sister are trying to contest the will. They're claiming your grandfather wasn't of sound mind when he wrote it." Kate let out a slow breath. She had expected this. "What do we do?" she asked. "Don't worry," the lawyer replied. "We have all the necessary documents and witnesses. We'll prove in court that your grandfather was of sound mind and clear judgment. We'll win this." A surge of strength rose in Kate's chest. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had her grandfather's love, she had legal support, but most importantly, she had herself. She was ready to fight, for her life, for her happiness, for her freedom. And she wouldn't let anyone take away what she had earned. Kate's life had changed forever. She gained more than financial freedom, she found peace within. She found what a real family should be, one built on love, respect, and understanding. And she realized that blood alone doesn't guarantee happiness. Sometimes, true family is found in the most unexpected places. Kate no longer felt invisible. She had become a strong, radiant woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. She had finally found herself.